Well, hello and welcome to Plane Talking UK, episode 467. My name's Nev, and in this week's show, buckle up for takeoff as we soar through Gatwick's runway expansion, London Stansted's record rebound, and $0 airfares down under. We'll also touch down at Bournemouth's growing aviation museum, dodge bears in Dubai's cargo hold, and see what's afoot with Virgin Atlantic's wary pilots. It's a first-class ticket to the latest in aviation. In the military, we're exploring gold standards and grounded F-35s whilst powering up for the future with the B-21 radar. We've also got a couple of features of the videos that we took at the National Museum of Flight. We've also got some fantastic stuffs going on in this week's show. So strap in and hold on to your in-flight peanuts. It's going to be a turbulent ride. It says here. Anyway. So joining me this week is Matt in the PT UK Master Suite studio, because we're a bit short of staff this week. There's only the two of us doing it.
Indeed, absolutely. And we should just say that this is being recorded on the Tuesday night because unfortunately everybody's busy on Friday basically, so that's why you've got me and Nev. We thought we'd make sure we put something together, and our thanks to John obviously, who's put together a show for us at very short notice, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
But loads of great content and stuff. You can tell he wrote the intro, can't you?
Yes. Which is why I was slightly hesitant. I thought, he doesn't normally do that. So,
no, indeed. Yes, he's a frightened. Yeah, I don't think he'd ever intentionally throw us under a bus, but
no, exactly. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, of course, we've got the results of last week's competition as well.
Yes.
So I shall be giving the results of that out at the end of the show.
What book are we giving away again?
We've got the Milestones of Flight, which is from the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, which is a very good visit, I have to say. This is one from my own personal collection. So I've dusted it off and I shall put it in an envelope for someone to win. Oh,
that's a shame. That's a shame. As I say, I thought somebody was going to, it came with free dust.
Oh, no. I've actually, made it
very good.
Palatable. Yes.
I'm very, very impressed.
There we are.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's we sort of touched on it, didn't we, last week, I suppose, but you've had quite a busy old week this week already. It's only Tuesday and you've already broken your car.
I know, yes. Now, I've done lots of driving this week. Started off Monday, went to Bristol, followed by Llanelli, so that's right on almost as far as the end of the United Kingdom you can go on the M4. Then I went up to Manchester Airport, then to Stockport, and then back to home. So, 500 odd miles worth of driving. Unfortunately, I couldn't work out why my front tyre was not holding any pressure. And the garage informed me today that it's because I've got a bent wheel and a crack in it as well. So the trouble with these alloy wheels, they're not very good when it comes to potholes and the low profile tyres and wheels and what have you. So that's another few £100 I shall have to find later this week when they fix it.
Never rains but it pours, does it really?
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it? But thank goodness it didn't give way as I was doing 69 miles an hour on the motorway.
Right, okay, 69.5. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, hopefully, as I say, so, you've still got, I mean, it's only Tuesday yet. I mean, you've got to take, how are you getting to work tomorrow?
Well, I'm borrowing Mrs. Nev's Fiesta. I'm going to give that a run down to Brighton, I think, and because it needs it, because it doesn't get out very much.
No,
at the moment.
How is Sue, by the way? How's she doing?
Much better, actually. Yes, she's on the mend with her arm, so that's good. So, but she's off work for another 5.5 weeks, basically.
Yeah. So. I'll tell you what, because we had a little chat before we started this with the lovely Sue, and I'll tell you what, I want to make sure you stay on her good side for a little while. I think.
Oh yes,
the contraption on the end of her hand is quite the weapon.
Yeah, I would definitely come off second best.
Very much so, yes. Indeed.
That item. Yes.
Oh, well, there we go. I moved into my office today.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I know. So the new job, I've been moved into my little office, and I got to sit in it for a whole 10 minutes before I had to come home. So it's a good start. But looking forward to getting stuck in with that one. Speaking of getting stuck in,
I think we should, don't you?
Yeah, I reckon so.
All right, let's go with the commercial stuff then.
Here we go.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
Well, here we go with quite a big story, actually, all about Gatwick Airport's expansion. It's on the travelweekly.co.uk, aviation source news, new civil engineer and Gatwick Airport's website themselves. Finally, Gatwick's plans to expand by bringing its existing northern runway into use alongside its main runway has been accepted for detailed examination by the Planning Inspectorate. The planning application or development consent order submitted on July the 6th sets out plans to make best use of Gatwick's existing infrastructure to unlock new capacity and to improve the airport's resilience. Crucially, the plans would allow Gatwick to grow from handling about 47 million passengers a year, as it did in 2019, to 75 million by the 2030s. Gatwick served 32.8 million passengers in 2022 compared to the 61.6 million passengers served by Heathrow last year. The northern runway, of course, is only used as a taxiway, but according to the new civil engineer, the 2.2 billion plan involves repositioning of the northern runway, so 12 metres further north, and reconfiguration of the taxiways, expansion of the terminal buildings, a new pier and amendments to aircraft stands, other airport facilities, including a waste facility, a new hangar and a new fire training grounds, new office space and hotel rooms, an additional 18,500 car parking spaces, road improvement works and environmental and mitigation measures. The Planning Inspectorate's acceptance of the application means it satisfies the airport consultation was conducted properly and the application can progress to the examination phase. This will probably involve with various public hearings and can take up to 18 months. But this is long overdue. This whole thing, and I've never worked out why they've had what they call a main runway and a standby emergency runway, which cannot be used at the same time.
I suspect it's restrictions and all that kind of thing. Do you know what I reckon it is? It's more because they were nervous about things like noise, I reckon.
Well, there is a bit of that. Of course, the emergency runway is not as wide as the main runway either. That's the other thing. So when they use that, it's quite a different picture for the pilots, I would say. But
do you think they'll make it? Do you think they'll make it wider though, so that it's suitable for all aircraft?
I think. My impression is that they are going to do that. Yes, they are going to also make it slightly further apart from the other one, so they can use them both together. But that's the way to expand it without having to dig up more things in other parts of the country. But it's one of the busiest single runway operations in the world, actually, not just the UK or Europe. But so hopefully it will lead to improved facilities for everybody, and also better timings for aircraft as well.
And I guess there will obviously be objections. That's a given, isn't it? Really, but I do feel like where there is concern over capacity at the London airports, and when I say the London airports, I mean Stansted, Heathrow, and Gatwick. For me, those are the main ones. I know there's Luton and all that kind of thing, but they're a bit far away for me, in my honest opinion. But this does seem like the sensible way forward when most of the work is already in place. Do you know what I mean? It seems like, if we're concerned about environmental impacts and all that kind of things, it seems to make sense to sort of deal with the one that's pretty much already there, other than probably updating landing lights and all that kind of thing. I guess depending on how narrow it is, could they not do a slightly unusual thing where perhaps it was like the 7.3s and the smaller ones come in on that one, leaving capacity for the larger ones? Or is that just too complicated?
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? With the smaller aircraft and the medium, the short to medium haul stuff, that could well use the what is now the standby runway, leaving the existing runway to use the bigger stuff, the 777s and the 380s and 787s, what have you. So you never know. But this is the first time in a long time it's actually made some progress. But that's not to say it's ever going to be built. But at least we've got some some forward motion.
We've got the first rubber stamp, if you will, on it.
Yes.
And now we're talking about capacity with London airports. And while we have that in mind, we'll move on to our next story, if that's okay, Nev. We've got the headline on this from various sources, I should say: City AM, mediacentre.stanstedairport.com, travelradar.aero, airportindustrynews.com, and again stanstedairport.com, and we're talking about that airport, Stansted Airport, reaching pre-pandemic passenger numbers. The London Stansted has become the first major UK airport to achieve above pre-COVID passenger numbers in any single month since before the pandemic, with this July being the third busiest in its history. According to figures shared with City AM, total passenger numbers for the period hit 2.81 million, which is 102% of the volumes it served in July 2019. The Independent first reported that the airport handled an average of 90,322 passengers per day last month, up from 88,709 in 2022, and only pipped by August in the 2 years prior to the pandemic in 2018 and 2019. The busiest day of the month for Stansted was Monday the 31st, with 96,500 passengers using the airport. This was also the busiest day of the year to date, according to the airport. Spain, Italy and Turkey were the most popular destinations for holidaymakers, with Brits flocking to Dublin, Istanbul and Palma de Mallorca, Stansted's three most popular city destinations in July. Last month, London Stansted announced its intention to submit a planning application for an extension to the airport's existing terminal building, which, if approved, will see a 3-bay extension to the back of the terminal building. It'll provide a more spacious departure lounge for passengers, including new shops, bars and restaurants, state-of-the-art check-in equipment, increased baggage system capacity and an enlarged security hall with additional space for more security lanes fitted in the next generation scanners. Now, this is not really much of a surprise, is it? I think. I think in the coming months, because they've been saying it's going to be, a bumper summer for all of the airports, not just the London ones. And I think genuinely, probably next month we'll see similar reports from both Gatwick and Heathrow.
I think you're right, and certainly 2023 feels like it's the first proper year post pandemic. Obviously, last year there was flying going on and what have you, but this is the first proper sort of holiday season type of year, I would say.
Indeed.
And this is why the airports are running out of capacity. They just need more of everything.
Indeed. Well, I think some of it is, of course, because it was people like me, for example, have to spend a long time saving up for their summer holiday, as you say, and I guess people weren't doing that because they didn't know, we didn't know obviously when the pandemic was going to come to an end. So and then some people do easily spend a whole year, don't they, sort of saving for their annual summer holiday.
And it's a big moment, isn't it? No two ways about it. And it starts usually in the bar at the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Quite, absolutely.
Which I think Carlos and I may be trying out at some point. We're getting some plans together to take a low-cost carrier flight early in the morning somewhere,
right,
where we'll be visiting the bar. And doing things that I would not normally do.
Right, okay. To sort of get the full Ryanair experience. Is that essentially what it is, to sort of get you? Yeah. Okay, right. Sorry, that's not fair. I should say low cost rather than naming one particular airline. But you know what I mean. It's, EasyJet and Jet2 do also exist and also can be used for irresponsible flight.
And Wizz Air too.
And Wizz Air, of course, absolutely. Going to mention them all. Absolutely, ticking all the boxes. Right. Is Carlos coming along with you to hold your hand?
Yes, he's going to guide me through everything, and I'm going to ask ridiculous questions like, where's the Ryanair lounge?
Right, okay. Very good.
Why is someone sitting in seat 1A?
Lovely.
When I should be in there.
Yeah, of course.
Those sort of things, and we'll see how we get on with that.
For me, Nev, and I'm going to put this out there, I don't think you're going to like what I'm about to say, but I feel personally, for the full low-cost airline experience, brace yourself, I think you should go from Luton.
Well, it was either going to be Stansted or Luton, probably. But
Okay.
yeah, Luton,
Yeah.
I think, probably does top it, if that's the right expression. Yeah,
I would love to see. I would love to get a full gauge of your experience at Luton Airport.
Well, I think that there could be a Nev and Carlos passenger experience.
Sounds very exciting.
Coming up before the end of the year.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Maybe we should save it for the Christmas show. I think it'll be something
that's an
quite
idea, isn't it?
special.
That's a good idea.
Indeed, I think so. Indeed. Oh well. Anyway, before either of us get sued.
Yeah, well, because I would much prefer to have my own private terminal.
Absolutely.
And this sort of thing. But actually, according to CNN.com, that may be possible in the world's busiest airport in September.
Oh.
So imagine being able to take off from a major US international airport on a commercial flight without stepping foot inside a clamorous, crowded and cavernous terminal. If you have enough coin, you don't have to imagine it. You'll actually be able to live it, at least at two large and frequently crowded US airports. A new private luxury terminal for people taking commercial flights is scheduled to open on September the 6th at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, according to operator PS in a news release. It's the second one under the PS umbrella, with a similar private terminal having been opened at LAX in Los Angeles since 2017. Found internationally in places such as Dubai, Frankfurt and London's Heathrow, the private VIP terminal concept is getting established in the US as well. PS aims to add a terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth in spring 2024 and Miami International Airport in 2025. They say in the news release that amongst the perks for departures is a private TSA screening free of queues, along with on-site customs and immigration processing at the terminal. A PS host takes care of all of your luggage, and when it's time to head to the aircraft, you're escorted to a private driver in a BMW. Not sure about that bit.
You were up for it up until then, weren't you?
Yeah, that's just taken the edge off it now for me, but we'll come back to that.
Okay, right.
But to board the plane straight from the tarmac, you can choose to be in the first group or the last group to board the plane. Well, I don't think there's any question about where I would be there. But whilst you're waiting at the terminal, it's all about luxury, whether you book time in the salon lounge for a more social experience or a private suite which features an entertainment centre, fully stocked snack and beverage bar and an ensuite bathroom. In its FAQ section of its website, PS says that each suite hosts up to 6 people comfortably and can be customised to better entertain children or pets. They also said that guests can enjoy an extensive menu of cocktails and chef-prepared meals, as well as spa and beauty offerings such as massages, manicure and barber services. Reservations are already being accepted for PS Atlanta, and annual memberships are optional. With those, your price for services is lower, but customers can also buy one-time packages without an annual membership. Packages can be bought for either one-way or round-trip services. So if you want to check out the concept, the lowest cost option is $1,095 for a one-time use without any membership of the salon. If you want to max out the experience, that will cost you $4,850 for the all-access membership package for a year.
Okay.
Now, I misread this whole thing because I assumed it was going to be free.
Right.
But clearly not.
Clearly not. Now, okay. So I've got a hit. Going back to what we were talking about, where you and Carlos are going to do the whole full low-cost experience, I've got a crazy idea. Why don't either me and Armando or me and Nick go and experience it from the other side?
Okay.
Those of us who have had the terrible misfortune of essentially spending our entire life in low cost.
No, I think that's only fair and reasonable. We'll have to raid the PTUK fund a little bit to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That may be a bit of a challenge, yeah.
Yes. It says you're escorted by a private driver in a BMW.
Yes.
As if that's a good thing. Wow.
I mean, the one thing I guess you don't have to worry about on private land is the fact that none of the indicators work on BMWs.
That's true. Yeah.
So that won't be an issue, obviously. And they're very good at flashing their headlights at people, so people.
Well, they have a big orange flashing light on the roof, won't they?
Oh, of course, yes. If they're going to be on the tarmac, yeah. Absolutely. Oh, that'll spoil the aesthetics, won't it? Can you imagine? Oh,
Yes.
dear. Oh, dear.
Well, we're always talking about how important it is to preserve aviation heritage.
Absolutely.
And I'm very pleased to say that the Bournemouth Aviation Museum is going to expand its aircraft display area.
Oh, wow.
This is on bournemouthecho.co.uk. Their museum off Parley Lane has had a planning application granted to expand its outdoor display area. The current area is set to expand into a section of land being used for shared car parking with Adventure Wonderland, seeing it grow in size by around 25%. The changes do not involve the construction of any permanent buildings and structures, but only new fencing to create the new and larger area. When proposing the scheme, the museum used 2 aerial photographs of the site, 12 years apart, to highlight how its aircraft numbers has increased. Bournemouth Aviation Museum said the outdoor aircraft display had been getting cramped as a result. It also said that the expansion is not intended to attract large numbers of new visitors, only to give existing visitors more space when exploring the site and to allow for exhibitions and aircraft to be moved around more freely. A planning report published on the scheme said the proposals for the site are considered to enhance the existing museum, which is recognised as an important tourist attraction within the local area. It is considered that the socio-economic benefits of the proposal will outweigh the limited impact on the openness of the Greenbelt, and the proposal will not result in any harm to highway safety. Well, that's good, isn't it? It's good to see some sensible stuff going on with planning and what have you. And I've never been to that museum.
No.
One of my friends has quite a bit though, that used to live down there. So I must try and find a way of getting down there. But,
this photo is fascinating, isn't it? So what they've done here. So just to describe it for those who are listening, and I'll try and make sure that this particular link. We're having a problem with our show notes at the moment, but I will try and get this link to this photo in here. So it's basically a picture from Google Earth, one from 2009 and one from 2021. And Nev, I mean, it's quite a dramatic difference, isn't it, in terms of of buildings as well, and it's really expanded, as you say. Loads of they are pretty much out of space, aren't they? I mean, they haven't got room for any more exhibits. I would say. Well,
just thinking about what they were saying about moving the aircraft around as well. So if they want to change the displays or the lineups, that's quite difficult to do with the limited space they've got. So,
absolutely,
that's great news. Really pleased to hear about that. So
indeed,
if it's near your part of the country, definitely worth a trip down there. I must say, I will try and do that at some point myself.
Indeed. So, okay, we'll move on to the next story then, if I may, and it's from AINonline.com, and the headline is 3 dead in California firefighting helicopter. Is it midair? Or mid-air,
yes.
Or it's
mid-air.
Oh, blimey. Okay. Yeah. So the NTSB is investigating after 2 California firefighting helicopters collided in mid-air after last evening, just before sunset. So this would have been Monday, by the look of this. The aircraft, a 1975 Sikorsky S-64E air crane and a 2004 Bell 407, were responding to the Broadway fire in Cabazon, 17 miles northwest of Palm Springs. The 407 was being operated by Aero Leasing of Medford, Oregon, on behalf of the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. The 3 aboard that aircraft died, and the wreckage ignited another small brush fire. Also under contract to Cal Fire and operated by Scylla Helicopters of Uber City, I should say, California. The S-64E made a hard landing, and all 3 on board survived. The accident was reported shortly before 7:20 p.m. local time. Sunset was at 7:42 p.m. While engaged in the firefight, 2 helicopters collided, said Cal Fire Southern Region Chief David Fulcher. He identified the dead as the contract pilot, a Cal Fire Division chief, and a Cal Fire captain. The aircraft took off from Hemmet Ryan Airport within minutes of each other shortly after 6:30 p.m. The last tracking from FlightAware at 6:45 p.m. showed both aircraft near Banning Municipal Airport, approximately 6 miles from Cabazon. The 407 was on a heading of 111 degrees, an altitude of 2,375 feet, descending at 94 feet per minute and at an airspeed of 120 knots. The S-64 was on a heading of 80 degrees, an altitude of 2,500 feet and descending at 632 feet per minute at an airspeed of 113 knots. Field elevation at KBNG is 2,222 feet MSL. What does that mean?
Mean sea level.
Okay, thank you. The accident occurred just south of the I-10 freeway near Morongo Casino Resort, 4 miles east of Banning. According to officials, the fire began at 6 p.m. when a structure fire ignited nearby grasslands, quickly grew to 20 acres and began threatening residences in the area. CAL FIRE immediately called for aerial support as part of its strategy to attack fires in various stages.
Oh dear.
Awful story, isn't it? Really is.
I think the thing is with firefighting aircraft, whether it's fixed wing or rotary like this, it's a dangerous thing, isn't it?
It is.
And the risk of either collision or the risk of losing control of the aircraft or whatever it might be is very real, isn't it? And no, absolutely shocking. Very, very unfortunate.
Well, you've got a lot of smoke and things like that as well, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure, obviously it'll all come out in the report there, but there are so many factors. I mean, they really are risking their lives, aren't they, when they do something like this?
Yeah, and one thing that struck me as well, that it says that the accident was reported just before 7:20 in the evening, local time, and the sunset was 20 to 8, or just after 20 to 8. So again, it's that sort of difficult light as well.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, very, very tragic.
And it's very sad, isn't it? We've had a bit of a run lately, haven't we, of various various planes and helicopters that have been dealing with grass fires or bush fires. And things like that. It's just, you sort of forget that flying is potentially, especially in these environments, is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, when you're flying these sorts of missions, I wouldn't know the first thing about it, but I would imagine that it's a very tense situation, and you're there to do a job. You're trying to extinguish the fires and all the rest of it, and also fly the thing at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there was more than one crew member on board, but nonetheless, it's a highly risky business. But it's the only method they've got of trying to put these fires out, isn't it?
Indeed. So I mean, our hearts go out to everybody who's been affected by what's happened here, really.
Yeah. The other thing we talk about a lot on the podcast is pilot fatigue, and just this week, it's really been emphasised with Virgin Atlantic. There's a whole load of sources for this story: aviation sources, sourcenews.com, bbc.com, aerotime.aero, lbc.co.uk, and aviationweek.com. The union BALPA said that in a recent vote that 96% of Virgin Atlantic pilots supported a ballot on industrial action. At issue are scheduling and rostering arrangements that were put in place during the COVID time, which will come to an end in December. Virgin said it was willing to enter into talks in the coming weeks. They employ 835 pilots. I didn't know it was that
wow, it's a big number, isn't it?
And it's believed to be the majority are members of the BALPA Pilots Union. A spokesman for BALPA said, "Our members have registered a trade dispute with Virgin Atlantic arising out of serious concerns relating to pilot fatigue and well-being around scheduling and rostering arrangements implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic." It said that 81% of its Virgin Atlantic Union members voted in the ballot, which it said gave BALPA an overwhelming mandate to pursue this dispute. The maximum flying time for a commercial pilot is 900 hours per calendar year, according to the CAA, and it's understood that the rostering average for Virgin Atlantic pilots is around 750 hours. A spokesman for the airline said that the health, safety and security of our people and customers is our number one priority. We operate a comprehensive data-driven fatigue risk management system with regulatory oversight, operating well above industry standards. We carefully analyse and manage working and fatigue levels to ensure that the well-being of our pilots and the safety of our operation at all times. Our pilots only fly when they are fit to fly. It is their duty as well as ours. Virgin Atlantic is one of the safest airlines in the industry, and we will defend our reputation fiercely. We are ready to commence pay and lifestyle discussions now with our pilot union representatives on the topics that are important to all of us. Now, I think the thing is, of course, Virgin, without exception, I would say, fly at least high, medium or long haul routes.
Yeah, very little short haul.
There's no real short haul operation at all with Virgin Atlantic. And of course, the guys and girls are going across multiple time zones. But of course, back in the day, talking to some pilots that we both know, if you were doing a New York route, it would maybe, 2 days down route, maybe 2.5, 3 days. Nowadays, the crews are on minimum rest and they get 24 hours off, and then they're back on the red eye flight for the next day, and then they've got to drive home. And in the case of many people, that's more than an hour's drive home.
It is, yeah.
When you've just done that flight, maybe some challenging weather conditions coming back into Heathrow, for example. You've left New York; it's absolutely wonderful, and you've got a Cat 3 approach or go around or windy conditions back at Heathrow, and that is challenging, and it must take it out of you. Certainly with the circadian rhythm that your body works with. So I'm going to be interested to see how this is resolved, because the only way I can see it being resolved is more time off. So between flights, I would have thought.
Indeed, absolutely. Go back to what it was. Whether it was perhaps 2 or 3 days that you spent. For example, if you were doing Heathrow to New York, you'd have 2 or 3 days in New York, if you like, so that you can properly rest. And then because it's one leg, then, isn't it? Essentially, if you've had enough time to rest in between, it's one leg to get you back. Now, one thing that has always surprised me with this, and I've never really quite understood. So, my dad and also a very good friend of mine both worked offshore, and they were always, because of the time and everything all involved. I mean, okay, admittedly they're only going the North Sea, out to the North Sea and all that kind of thing, but even if you lived near the airport, for example, you still used to be driven. You would be picked up by either a taxi or some other arrangement and taken to Norwich Airport in this particular case, or there used to be a helipad at Yarmouth. You were never expected to drive into work, if you see what I mean, for that flight. I must admit, I've always been very surprised, and like breakfast radio DJs in the industry, as an example, you are never expected to drive yourself into work. There's always a car that comes and picks you up. And then sort of takes you home and all that kind of thing, purely because you are flying at a silly time of the day, or you are on the radio at a silly time of the day, because they're concerned, if you like, the employer is concerned that you might be very tired driving into work, and more especially very tired driving home. And I'm very amazed, if you like, that in an industry that is so reliant on safety, that's not commonplace, if you like, for the pilots and that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. And I can think, if I've just done a transatlantic flight coming back, especially from the West Coast, from Portland, where our company HQ is, I mean, that's it's an 8-hour flight or so coming back, 8.5 hours. Then you've waited for your luggage, and it's, early-ish in the morning, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, depending on what time of flight I've got. Yeah. Then I've got a 45, 50-minute drive home, probably in the rush hour. When I get home, I can barely remember half the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is an issue.
And that's all me just eating steak and drinking red wine. I've not got to operate the flight, So
Indeed.
From a crew point of view, I don't know how these guys and girls do it. I really don't.
Well, my best friend works for a big company as cabin crew, and especially it very much depends on which direction they're working. But if they're going the wrong way, if you like, in terms of time zones and all that kind of thing, it must take days to get back to some kind of normality. And like, again, in this scenario, they are literally resting for 2 days tops. Do you know what I mean? It's quite often literally a 24-hour period, that they are merely on the ground for to like try and get some kind
Yes, your friend goes across several continents in one go.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
then as you say, on the minimum rest basis, that then operates the flight back or to somewhere else afterwards.
And it absolutely wipes them out.
Yeah,
and
there's no doubt about, I don't know about you, but as one gets a bit older, I can say that because I'm older than you, it does take it out of you more.
Absolutely,
20 years ago, I never felt the jet lag like I do now, even though I only fly transatlantic probably once or twice a year, whereas the crews are doing it all the time.
What scares me is I mean they're very young. By yours and my standards, and it is a serious issue. I mean, I've said this always to pilots and cabin crew. I doff my cap to everybody that is involved in looking after us when we're in the air, because it's not the glamorous lifestyle that everybody thinks it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some perks. You get to go to some amazing places, and when you are there for 24 hours, there you can still you probably shouldn't. But there are some amazing places you can go and visit while you're there.
I would say that if the airlines chose to hike the ticket price up a little to enable crews to have more time off down route, and I know that with the aircraft on the ground it's not earning money. I understand that. But I think most people would be prepared to pay a little bit more if that meant that the crews could have a bit more time off down route, especially on those longer legs, especially where you've got 8-hour time zone differences and this kind of thing.
But perhaps though, Nev, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, you and I are perhaps a bit more sensible and would be willing to pay a little bit more. I think there are some people who are literally only looking for the cheapest flight, and I don't blame them at all. That's absolutely what I should be doing with my trip next September. But it's a tough gig, isn't it? It's a tough gig. So I completely understand, going back to the story, why people like Balpa and stuff are sort of like balloting members and that kind of thing. I completely get why they're frustrated by it, I guess.
I think also because, as the article says, the terms and conditions are still operating on the basis of the COVID-19 restrictions as well. So I think there needs to be some renewal and update of that, and a good hard look at pilot fatigue and cabin crew fatigue as well. Obviously, this is a pilot dispute, but the boys and girls in the back, it's the same story for them.
Indeed. And of course, we're talking about, we're talking here like Stansted, its passenger level numbers are now at pre-pandemic levels. As I mentioned earlier, I have no doubt we're going to hear similar stories from both Heathrow and Gatwick. So the numbers are there to warrant sort of, no longer being in this sort of pandemic sort of minimum crew rest thing. But then perhaps again some of the problem here is that they are desperately short still of pilots and cabin crew. So perhaps one of the reasons why they are on minimum crew rest is perhaps in defence of the airlines, because they don't have enough staff to go round yet.
I think that's very astute, and I think that's a very good point as well, because we know there's this pilot shortage again coming up with folks retiring, they just need bums on the seats, don't they, to operate.
So we go back to what we were talking about last week, is perhaps if they made it more accessible, becoming a pilot more accessible, male, female, across the board, if the airlines help people get their licenses, perhaps we can see those numbers come down.
I think Virgin make a good point in that article when they say, if you don't feel fit to fly because of fatigue, then you phone in sick. And there should be no questions asked about that. And I don't think there is, from what I gather, in airlines generally, certainly the bigger ones here in the UK. If you don't feel that you're able to operate the flight, then you phone in sick. Obviously, give them as much notice as they can to try and find a replacement crew, which is why you've got people on airport standby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things like
indeed.
That, so.
Indeed. I wonder what happens if you're down the line. If you're
same story. I think if you're down route and you're not fit to operate the flight back, then several things can happen. They can hotel the passengers, or they can fly a crew member out there, for example. But of course, on the longer routes, that just takes time, doesn't it?
It does, indeed.
Time is money in aviation, as in so many other things.
But then I think both you and I, Nev, would be quite happy to sit here and say, we would rather be delayed than have a pilot in the cockpit who isn't fit to be there. I would much rather any airline and or pilot err on the side of caution if there's any doubt that they're 100% fit to be in that cockpit.
Yeah, and that's what they say about aviation, isn't it? It's safety first.
Absolutely.
All the airlines say that. So.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, talking of places far away.
Yeah, quite absolutely. Now, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this airline. Are you familiar with it, Nev?
Vietjet.
Vietjet. Okay. All right. Well, we'll go with that. And apologies in advance if we have got it wrong. We haven't got John in our ears who would immediately correct us, because I have no doubt he'll know all about it. Simpleflying.com is the source, and it's Vietjet launches Airbus A330 Perth route with $0 airfares. Yes, you heard me right. Oh. This week has started well for Western Australia air travellers, with Singapore Airlines and Vietjet announcing more flights between Perth and Southeast Asia. While Singapore Airlines is ramping up its existing route to daily flights, it is the arrival of Vietjets that will cause the most excitement. With Vietjet's first Australian flight from Ho Chi Minh City touched down in Melbourne in April. It was a relatively unknown brand down under. A week later, Vietnam's largest private airline began flying to Sydney, and in July started the first ever direct flights between Brisbane and Vietnam. The Melbourne and Sydney flights have proven so successful that Vietjet is increasing the frequency from 3 flights a week to daily in December, with Brisbane going to 3 times weekly. Vietjet has now announced it will become the first airline to operate direct flights between Perth and Ho Chi Minh City. The service will commence on the 21st of November with an initial frequency of 2 flights weekly. The new route means that Vietjet is now offering bookings on 38 flights per week between Australia and Vietnam. The people of Perth will need to quickly grasp that booking with Vietjet on a Wednesday, Thursday and Friday brings the cheapest fares. To celebrate launching the route, the airline is offering $0 tickets, excluding taxes and fees, of course, from now until the end of December the 31st, 2023. But they must be booked between midnight and 23:59 on Wednesday, Thursday or Friday. Vietjet also offers $0 fares on flights to Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane per the above conditions, and with a flight period from August the 10th to March the 31st, 2024. They must be booked by Vietjet's website or the Vietjet Air mobile app. It also has frequent flyer loyalty programs, SkyJoy, free Sky Care insurance, and other incentives on offer. Not ideal for us, obviously, because we'd have to get to Vietnam first.
I'm just thinking that the phone lines might be a bit jammed, or their internet service provider might be a bit jammed during that period of time.
Yes, indeed. I don't think it'd matter what size of load balancer you had on your web server. I think it's going to, not be able to deliver everything that's required.
Well, $0, that's a good number in my book.
It is. As I say, the only downside for us, Nev, is obviously we've got to get to Vietnam first.
I haven't thought that through.
That could spoil things a little, I fear.
Okay. This is an interesting one.
It is. I love this.
It's on aerotime.aero, and it says that Royal Mail launches drone service to deliver mail to Orkney. Well, remote communities in the Orkney Islands in the far north of Scotland have become the first in the United Kingdom to be offered a drone-based mail delivery service. The trial run will initially be for 3 months, but could be prolonged if successful. The service is operated in collaboration with Skyport's drone services and will use DLV-2 drones made by Speedbird Aero, a Brazilian air mobility solutions developer. The small unmanned aircraft are able to carry parcels of up to 6 kilos. Mail will be flown from Stromness on the western side of Orkney's main island to the neighbouring islands of Hoy and Grimsey, where it will be delivered to the final recipients by the local post office. The pioneering project is supported by Connected Places Catapult. That's an appropriate name for this, isn't it? An accelerator of urban and regional development and mobility innovation projects, and has also received funding from the Department for Transport's Freight Innovation Fund. One of the project's aims, in addition to the potential benefits and emission reductions, is to act as proof of concept for a broader use of unmanned aircraft in mail and parcel delivery. Orkney has emerged as one of the UK's test beds for new aeronautical concepts, not just in the field of drone development, but also as a base for testing several different low-emission aviation concepts. Well, drones and mail delivery. Now, Orkney, as in the case of many of the small islands and highlands in Scotland, does suffer from poor weather conditions at times as well. So I'm wondering how that's going to work. But I've gone from being highly sceptical about all of this sort of thing to being quite interested in it now, because if they can actually make this work, then there's a lot of possibilities, I think, isn't there?
So I mean, obviously with the old job, the wine company, we did used to actually deliver to most of the isles in Scotland. In fact, I think it was virtually all of it. Jersey was literally, I think, the only place where we didn't deliver to. Yeah. So it was the Orkney Islands, it was the Scilly Isles, it was all of them basically. What's the other? Not Skegness. That's on the mainland. But what am I? Shetland Islands. That's where I was going with that. And one of the problems there is, so I mean, obviously we used to have to give a very generous delivery window, shall we say, for that, because it would leave our courier and go with the third party courier literally over the water. And for example, if it was going to the Shetland Islands, weirdly, we never had any problems with deliveries there, because they knew that all of their deliveries, no matter when they ordered them, if they ordered it on the Wednesday, it wouldn't come till the following Friday, and they just knew that that's when the boat was coming to bring everything from the mainland, essentially. So, I mean, 6 kilograms is not a lot, let's be honest. So, you're talking very, very light parcels. Obviously, if it's a case of wine, it's going to need to be essentially a helicopter, I think, is probably the thing. But this is definitely a step in the right direction, isn't it? And I guess all you need is a postmaster at the other end to receive the item, and then it can enter the network. Their network on the island.
Where I've got this thing wrong in the past, I think, it is the thought of drones turning up in your back garden.
I don't think that's the plan, is it? Not
and
yet.
Then the thing being attacked by the dog. Now, clearly, this is not the intention here, is it?
No, indeed. I think it's literally to just... Well, and also, with the Orkney Islands, for example, it's quite a short hop, from, mainland, if you like, to... so from the Highlands, I think it is, isn't it? Where it goes from there across to Orkney. And it's a relatively short hop, one which I could do in even my drone. If you see what I mean. It's quite a short,
Yeah. But of course, all highly reliant on GPS, isn't it?
Very much so, yes.
If that ever had a problem, that's...
Yes. It's in the water, isn't it? Yeah, it's in the water. That's essentially it. And also, the other thing I would say is my drone, admittedly, is only a small one with 4 propellers, or 4 blades, if you want to call them, on that kind of thing. And it's very susceptible to the wind. And any coastline, but especially in the north, shall we say, it's almost certainly very windy at all times.
Yeah.
And this one is a 6-blade thing, and it's quite a beast. Don't get me wrong, but I don't. I wonder, what the ceiling must be quite low in terms of wind speed before it can't be used.
Also, I think people on the Highlands and Islands are used to delays with mail and parcels and all sorts of things. Having said all that, it took over 3 weeks to get a book to our good friend Dirk S. in Germany, by using the normal postal system, and yet I could get it to Canada for Bill's prize in a week.
Wow.
So
okay. Right.
I don't know how any of that
clearly
works,
a bit of airmail involved in at least one of them.
Definitely. Yeah. However, no,
Indeed.
I'm going to keep an eye out on this. I think this is an interesting and sensible use of technology. Yeah.
I think they're going to get bigger. I think load bearings and stuff, and it does make sense. As you say, you've got somebody at the other side to receive it. I mean, on a good day and lots of batteries, you could absolutely deliver quite a few parcels. In an afternoon's worth of flinging it across the thing. And again, with GPS data and all that kind of thing, I dare say you can virtually automate it, can't you? Where you hit the button and it goes over the water and drops, reports if there's a problem, etc. Certainly for the more remote islands and more remote parts of Scotland and anywhere really. I mean, absolutely, it's the way forward, I think.
We shall see, won't we?
We will.
Now we could keep hearing about ChatGPT, don't we?
I'm familiar with that platform. Yes.
Oh dear, it's beyond me. It really is.
It was used once, believe it or not, to make our show notes.
Oh, and we'll never know, will we?
Absolutely, yeah. Producer John carried out an experiment to get it to find all the stories and all that kind of thing. And although he had to rewrite a lot of the stories, the content was obtained by an API, basically. So
how about that?
I know.
Absolutely. This next story is a slight, variation on that, isn't it? But it sounds interesting nonetheless.
Indeed, yes, absolutely. Jet.ai says Charter GPT app will boost flight bookings. There we go. It's our AINonline.com. Jet AI this week launched the Charter GPT app, which it says will harness artificial intelligence to allow consumers to use voice commands to interact with its charter booking platform. According to the Las Vegas-based software group, its use of natural language processing will make it quicker for both passengers and aircraft operators to convey information back and forth without involving a broker as the human in the loop. The Charter GPT app is due for release via the Apple App Store in the next few days, with the Android release to follow in a few weeks. Jet AI plans to release an update in the fall that will support Stripe payments for flights and automatic contract reconciliation, as well as provide information on ground transportation options and airport information. The aircraft availability data is sourced from the Avinode platform, which generates estimates for requested flights. After interrogating the app over possible flight options, the user can select one or more of these with the app and then make a contact with operators to confirm pricing, which is then conveyed back to the user in the app on its checkout page. Jet AI takes a commission on any flights booked through the app. According to Jet AI, many charter operators ignore inbound quotes from the Avinode platform, mainly because they don't have sufficient staffing levels to deal with multiple requests, and perhaps also because they view some as frivolous or originated by rival operators trying to game the system. Winston told AIN that out of, say, 500 quote requests fielded in a day, only 20 might get a response from an operator. According to Jet AI, Charter's GPT's knowledge of key elements of the charter market, i.e. aircraft operators and geography, is based on Wikipedia. Oh dear. That sounds dangerous. Winston said, I've left the camera on you, Nev. I'm so sorry. Winston said its software team has trained the AI element of the system not to go off on tangents when responding to clients. The company has further recalibrated the system's personality after encountering some glitches during beta testing. Charter GPT is the first step in private aviation in this direction, AI and natural language processing, and the more bookings it does, the smarter it will become, Winston said. Jet AI believes the app will make the charter booking process between 10 to 50% more efficient. Now, John's carried out some experiments here, so shall we go through this in detail? And he was saying, so he's done some research on the background of this. Basically, he's saying that AIN tried the Charter GPT app to prepare for a trip for 2 passengers from Guildford in the UK to Montpellier, my apologies, in France. In response to a voice request, the app quickly proposed flights out of Farnborough, Blackbush or Biggin Hill airports, proposing 14 different jet options. After seeking lower pricing by adding turboprop aircraft as an option, the app proposed a Pilatus PC-12 aircraft. Oh, how lovely. And a provisional quote came back at around 15 minutes. The provisional quote gave some information about the PC-12 offered, mentioning features such as a coffee pot, very important, enclosed lavatory, ice bin, leather seats, a 110-volt power outlet. Seating capacity was shown as up to 6 passengers with pets permitted. There you go. However, the quote provided no information about the operator beyond stating that they held an Argus Platinum safety and quality audit. No further information was offered without having to accept the quote to reconfirm the aircraft's availability, at which point a contract and payment details would be sent via email. Pricing for this European trip was shown in US dollars and excluded local taxes and fees. Now, how do you feel about this one, Nev? I'd be interested to hear what you think about this.
It's a bit like the trainline.com, isn't it, really?
Nothing's that bad.
Oh dear. There's a lot of complexity with this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
The weather being one of them, of course. And when you're booking a train or whatever it is, you don't even, unless it's very extreme weather conditions, you don't even think about the weather side of things, do you? But when you're booking an aircraft trip like this, weather is everything, isn't it? So agreed. I can see there's going to be possible difficulty there, but also trying to work out what the price is going to be as well, and aircraft availability, and I don't know. But there must be a starting point somewhere. You've got to find a way of trying to do this kind of stuff if we're going to use more and more of the regional airports for short haul, flying for a few passengers.
So here's my take on it. You know how much I love technology and that kind of thing, and I think I've mentioned this before, so perhaps it won't be a huge surprise to you what I'm about to say. But people still need jobs. And I do feel, by all means, use some form of AI to perhaps field calls, intelligent, properly intelligent, well-researched, well-resourced AI has the potential to have a conversation with the user to get them to the right person so that they're not passed from pillar to post. Because I know with many call centres, that's one thing that annoys all of us, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But we all still need jobs in call centres and things like that. And you will never get more personality than an actual human on the end of the call who's able to think outside the box. Do you know what I mean? Now, obviously, there are some agents, shall we say, who are probably far worse than any AI you could put in the system, even now. So there'll always be that human element. But the vast majority of people who are working in these call centres know their subject matter inside out, and you can ask them a really unusual question and they'll be able to go and find you a workable solution or answer. So I think there is a place for AI and GPT and all that kind of thing. I do think there is a place for it, absolutely, but I think it should be making sure that you get to the right person to answer your query rather than trying to answer the query itself.
Yeah, and I've tried to cancel an Avios car rental booking last week, and it took me 2 days to do it.
Okay.
On the phone, because I kept getting put through to automated systems.
Right. Yeah.
And when I finally got through to the right person, they said, "Oh no, you shouldn't be dialing that number. You should be dialing this number."
Okay. Right.
So I'm going on and on, but no, I completely agree. We do need people on the end of the phone.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as that. Now, for the simplest of things, maybe there is a place for it, as you say, but for this kind of situation.
Oh, and they can be absolutely complex. Don't get me wrong. As I say, I mean, you can literally start the conversation with this AI of some description, and it does a very good job of translating, if you like, what you've said to try and pick out the department that you actually need to go to in order to do that. And that, for me, that would be using AI as something that would actually help everybody, so it can analyze the conversation and make sure, so it can have a two-way conversation to ask certain questions to help it find the right department. I mean, better than press 1 to do this, press 2 to do that. But you can literally give it a statement of fact. It will then analyze that statement of fact, pick out the details it needs, ask supplementary questions that are relevant to the department that you need to end up in order to end up where you want to end up.
I think that's a very reasonable position, and that needs people to do it, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. But
do you think animals could do it as well?
I know one. I know one that's very good at escaping. If that's where we're going.
Well, yeah, I was slightly concerned about this.
Houdini, I think, is the word we're looking for.
On that 1mileatatime.com, on aerotime.aero, theguardian.com, and news.sky.com, bear escapes from crate in plane's cargo hold.
As you do.
At Dubai airport. Well, this incident happened on Friday of last week and involved Iraqi Airways flight IA-123 from Baghdad to Dubai. The flight was operated by a brand new Boeing 737 MAX 8 with the registration code Yankee India Alpha Sierra Mike. The 2-hour and 1-minute flight was totally routine until after it landed in Dubai. When ground workers began to unload the cargo of the Boeing 737, they discovered a bear roaming around freely. The good news is that the bear was supposed to be on the flight, which is not always the case, as we've seen from time to time.
Quite.
But the bad news is that the bear was supposed to be in a container, so obviously managed to escape. In the video, I think that Matt's got here, you can see a video of the cargo hold door just slightly open. And for some reason, a ground worker is even seen rubbing the bear's head. The return flight from Dubai to Baghdad ended up by being delayed to nearly 4 hours due to this ordeal. The airline and authorities in the UAE had to coordinate to sedate and then remove the bear from the cargo hold safely. Furthermore, the cargo hold had to be inspected for any damage. Iraqi Airways said that on Saturday that procedures to transport the bear were carried out in accordance with the law and with procedures and standards approved by the International Air Transport Association, IATA. The airline said that the bear was being flown from Baghdad to Dubai, but an Iraqi Airways official speaking anonymously confirmed that the bear was instead being transported to the Iraqi capital. Now, I'm not a expert on weight and balance and centre of gravity, but I can only imagine what a bear wandering around the cargo hold could be doing to the aircraft's performance.
I mean, it's the ultimate in loose cargo, isn't it?
Phase of flight.
Indeed. It's the ultimate in loose cargo, isn't it? And the other thing that I'm just going to run this video again now. This is a very brave person who's patting the bear on the head, giving it a scratch. I mean, that's very brave. That's all I'm saying.
Actually, that bear is not as big as I thought it was going to be. So maybe it wouldn't have had such a big effect on the weight and balance of the aircraft, but not what you want to see when you open the
No,
cargo
yes,
hold.
I believe the phrase we're looking for there, Nev, to coin one of your many excellent phrases, suboptimal.
Yes, and can you imagine if it got out onto the apron and started
I say, causing havoc. Yes,
running around?
Indeed. I wonder how long it took to, obviously, because I mean, you've got a bear who's essentially desperately trying to get out. I mean, the damage inside the cargo hold. I guess is there much cabling etc. exposed in the cargo hold of an aircraft?
Don't know, but the thought of anything being chewed through or
something critical. For example, let's say landing gear as an example, like the command. I mean, I'd like to think perhaps it's, sort of like, buried somewhere that you can't get into. But an interesting story to say the least.
No, exactly. Well, on that animal note, that concludes the commercial airline segment.
It does.
Next up, we're going back to the National Museum of Flight of Scotland. We've got a couple more interviews to play out, actually. And it was such a great day out there. But, of course, we were out in the elements. It was a bit chilly when we went up there. And the Avro Vulcan is one of the aircraft that is stored outside in the Museum of Flight. And you'll see that Carlos and I were well wrapped up for the process.
Well, here's one for all the military lovers, Jonathan Warner included. It's the Avro Vulcan here at the museum, flown in here or brought to the museum in 1984, where it's been on display since. And Nev, it's certainly showing signs of its age here, bless it, the Vulcan.
It is, and you might gather as well, it's rather chilly out here on the east coast of Scotland. But what a treat to come and see this aircraft. Unbelievable. But I don't think I've actually been up close and personal with one of these before. So it's first for me.
No, I look back to many years ago where we had our 100th show, and me and Matt were sitting round about here inside the Vulcan, after going through the hatch, which is just behind where Nev is standing there. But what a piece of British history, hey Nev? Yeah, it's so great to see the Vulcan here on display at the museum. And it's outside, so it's obviously open to the elements, but they are frantically raising, I know they're raising funds to support the restoration and of the Vulcan here at the museum. But it's great to see the Vulcan bomber here. And I think, Nev, it's one of those times when we should have probably brought a hat and a scarf as well.
And I should have brought a bigger pullover as well. So I do apologise for the company branding here, but it is quite a good jacket. So
yes, it is a bit chilly here, but no, it's still good to see, and it's one of the many exhibits here at the museum at the Vulcan, which is obviously on display for you to see here. And it's good. It's a damn good piece of British history now.
Yeah, the other thing to bear in mind is there's an awful lot of space here at East Fortune at the museum, so it really is a great day out actually. And honestly, looking at the admission prices, it's incredibly good value as well. Some museums, you might think are charging too much these days, but the folks here, I think it was adults were £14.
That is, correct,
like that. Which is really good, really, really good value. So I would highly recommend, if you're in the area, to come along. Be great day out.
So we are not far from the de Havilland Comet, which we're going to go and have a look at in just a moment. Nev, looking forward to that. Bit of commercial aviation. So from a windy, blustery underneath the Vulcan here, back to you in the studio.
I mean, it does look cold, and if you look like you were very cold, and I don't blame you for your company branding there of coffee.
It was very sunny at times, but boy, that east coast of Scotland, that was very windy indeed. And obviously the Avro Vulcan being outside, it's it's looking its age now. A little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. This is the thing, isn't it? It can't be helped, can it? And it's. So, what was the comment that he was referring to there, by the way?
Oh, the one that we played out a few weeks ago, actually. So we're playing it out in slightly different order of things. Well, according to when I've cut them. Basically.
Yeah, basically, you've had time to put them together.
There's a comment on the site there as well, which was fascinating. We did a walkthrough of that too. So, no, it's very good. And we got another one coming up from inside.
Lovely.
Museum, pleased to say.
So you're not freezing today.
This aircraft could not be more different from the one that you've just seen. So
wow! Oh, really? Okay.
Shortly.
All right, then we've got a couple more stories to do in the world of military, and we'll get right to that. I think, Nev.
Yes, this is going to be quite a lot of fun. You and I doing military. That's going to be hazardous, isn't it?
Good luck, everyone. Here we go.
What's up, Buggies 135, 50, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay, 100 Buggies.
I've been looking forward to this.
Well, on the ukaviation.news, the actual headline says Loganair gets Armed Forces Gold Standard. So we're sort of combining a bit of military and commercial in the same.
I knew it was too good to be true. I knew it.
Well, the UK's leading regional airline, Loganair, has become the first airline to be awarded the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme Gold Award. The UK government scheme recognises businesses for the opportunities that they provide armed forces communities. Loganair currently employs 16 people who are part of that community, and amongst them is Captain Akash Sajid, who is also an Army Reservist private. Captain Sajid previously attended Edinburgh Castle last November to accept Loganair's Silver Defence ERS Award. Lindsay Kennedy, Head of Human Resources at Loganair, said, "We are honoured and excited to be the first UK airline to achieve a Gold Defence Employer Recognition Scheme award following our previous bronze and silver accreditations. We believe flying is for all and go to great lengths to be a diverse and inclusive employer. It's incredibly rewarding to be acknowledged in this way." The Minister for Defence, People, Veterans and Service Families, Dr Andrew Morrison, said, "I would like to thank all of the organisations that have been recognised in this year's award. I'm delighted that we have seen so many organisations recognised with a gold award, and their continued support demonstrates the unique benefits and strengths that our armed forces community can bring to the workplace. To win a gold award from the Ministry of Defence, organisations must provide at least 10 extra paid days for leave for reservists and have supportive HR policies in place for reservists, veterans, cadet force, adult volunteers and the spouses and partners of those serving in the armed forces." Do you know, that's something I had never thought about before.
No.
That is fascinating, isn't it? Because, people that have previously served or are currently serving, can bring a lot to the commercial aviation sector as well, can't they?
I mean, you've only got to look at our very own Armando.
Yeah.
Who's obviously ex-military and all that kind of thing, brings with them a wealth of skills that perhaps you wouldn't have. I mean, air-to-air combat is not necessarily required for commercial aviation, certainly.
No, I think if you're doing that in your PC-12, then you're going to be in trouble with the FAA.
They're not going to be thrilled about it, certainly. But absolutely. Well, I mean, what a great scheme and great news for Loganair as well. And I love that. I think it's a really, really nice little story.
Yeah, absolutely. So on to some what I would call proper military now.
Yes, indeed, and it's a bit of a difficult one. This one, it's aerotime.aero is the source that it comes from, and basically, long story short, Belgium refuses delivery of 2 F-35 fighters over technical non-compliance. So Belgium will not accept the 2 F-35A combat aircraft which were to be delivered by the US manufacturer Lockheed Martin at the end of 2023. VRT NWS first reported the news, citing information confirmed by the spokesperson for Minister of Defence Ludwin de Onder. As a result, the Belgian defence authorities now anticipate a delay of at least 6 months in receiving the ordered aircraft. In October 2018, Belgium selected the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II over the Eurofighter Typhoon and the Dassault Rafale. The country purchased a total of 34 F-35A aircraft to replace the Belgian air component fleet of F-16 fighters. The first of these fighters is currently in its final assembly line and is expected to be ready by December 2023. The contract that Belgium settled on with the US states that the F-35s must be delivered in the most recent modern available configuration. The F-35A is currently undergoing a major hardware and software upgrade. Among other things, important computers and screens will be replaced in order to implement a series of new capabilities on the F-35A, new weapons, improved electronic warfare, etc. According to the Ministry of Defence, this upgrade is known as Technology or a Tech Refresh 3, or also the TR3. They do love an acronym, don't they? And the new capabilities are referred to as Block 4. In brackets upgrade, essentially. These make the aircraft considerably more resistant to the current modern ground and air threat, both offensively and defensively. Each major upgrade naturally involves a significant certification and qualification effort, requiring extensive test campaigns of more than 200 test flights. And although the production of new aircraft is finally on schedule, there are delays with the certification. The US government is also not accepting the F-35 aircraft from Lockheed Martin until relevant combat capability is validated in accordance with our users' expectations. Now, I can't help but feel that Lockheed Martin have been sort of caught napping here on this, because obviously they knew this was, this was obviously in the contract. And I completely understand why the Belgians and the US are saying, no, we're not going to have these aircraft until, you've kept your part of the bargain, essentially.
You'd think they'd know that at the beginning of all this, or sometime during the contract period, wouldn't you?
Well, that's why I feel they've been caught napping. Did they perhaps think that the US government and the Belgian government weren't going to notice that it was the most up-to-date hardware?
Yeah, and can you imagine the knock-on effects, from an economic point of view?
Absolutely.
I mean, the margin that would go out of the aircraft because of the extra work that has to be done, which they presumably, I don't know whether they can charge that on to the end customer or not. I don't know, but
I don't think they should be.
Quite a big moment, isn't it, really, if you think about it?
Absolutely. But also, as you say, I mean, it was clearly in the contract. That's why they're able to do that.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, but the price they paid has got to be honoured in my book. It was sold to them with the very latest in avionics. I assume there was no clause in there saying, the 2022 vertion.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, dear. Yes.
Funny one, isn't it? I mean, neither of us, sadly, are sat here at the moment, are in any way qualified to offer any kind of common, all we can do is offer common sense, I suppose, on this particular story.
Yes, we can offer no expertise whatsoever.
No, zero, literally none.
We set out to do that.
No, indeed. This is where we wish Armando was here, but it is what it is.
Well, actually, this is something. This final story for the military actually is a good news story, and actually some better news in terms of delivery of things. It's on aerotime.aero, and it says that Northrop Grumman has successfully powered on the first flight test aircraft of the highly anticipated B-21 Raider strategic bomber. The event was announced by President and CEO Cathy Warden during the company's earnings call for the second quarter of 2023. She said, on the B-21, we successfully powered on the first flight test aircraft in the quarter, during the call defining it as another important milestone in our campaign to achieve first flight and transition into production. A power on indicates the moment when the aircraft's electrical power systems are activated for the first time. During the power on, engineers and technicians conduct tests to ensure that all of the electrical systems are functioning correctly, and they may also check for any potential issues or malfunctions. Powering up the first test aircraft represents a crucial phase ahead of the maiden flight, which is scheduled to take place before the end of this year, 2023. 6 B-21 bombers are being assembled at Northrop Grumman's facility in Palmdale, California. Kathy Warden highlighted new manufacturing techniques, such as the use of a digital thread to improve labour efficiency with the programme. The B-21 is expected to enter service by 2026, gradually replacing the B-2 Spirit and the B-1 Lancer strategic bombers. Unveiled by Northrop Grumman on December the 2nd, 2022, this new strategic bomber reuses some of the B-2's general characteristics with a similar sleek flying wing design. Ultimately, the US Air Force expects to operate a 2-bomber fleet of B-21s and modified B-52s. It intends to order 100 B-21s, which is more than its current fleet of B-1s and B-2s combined.
Now, if you asked me to identify like a really fancy, modern-looking aircraft, this, for some reason, is absolutely for me. This does look like some kind of alien ship. It doesn't look like something that's owned certainly by any military I'm familiar with. I mean, it's a stunning-looking aircraft, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah.
And again, I'm asking a question here, which is where I wish we had Armando, but I'm assuming the particular design is one to minimise the chance of it being picked up on things like radar and stuff like that.
Yes, it's very stealthy, isn't it? In
it is, respect. Yeah. So, again, a question that neither you or I are in any way capable and or qualified to pass comment on, but it is a very sexy looking aircraft. There's no two ways about it. That's absolutely the way forward, I think.
Yes. Now, that's the end of the military segment. But
we did it, Nev. We got through it.
Yes, we have. But right at the complete other end of the speed spectrum, as we go back to the National Museum of Flight at East Fortune, it's amazing some of the aircraft that you come across. One of the things that we saw there was the Montgomery Autogyro, and honestly, it needs seeing to be believed. So let's go back there now and have a look at what we found.
No, I don't know about you, Nev, but whenever I see one of these, it always reminds me of that Bond film. I forget which one it is. It was one of the early Bond films when they had one of these on the film itself. It's Autogyro, Nev.
It reminds me of my lawnmower, actually, because that's what the engine looks like, or very similar to my lawnmower. I wonder if it goes any faster.
And something I didn't realise until I was just reading in front of me here was that this isn't powered, Nev. The actual top rotor is not powered. It is according to here, the forward motion of the Autogyro, of its forward motion when it's moving through the air, actually rotates this top blade and actually keeps the aircraft in the sky.
I did not know that. Well, it actually, just reading from the cheat sheet we've got in front of us here, in 1981, Montgomery Engineering built their first Autogyro in their workshops in Ayrshire. And the aircraft was built by them in 1996 as a research aircraft for the University of Glasgow, and the space normally occupied by a second seat was used to accommodate equipment to record flight data. And the Autogyro was flown from Bournemouth, Carlisle and Perth airports for student research projects. The stats are that it was, there's one crew, obviously.
One crew, yeah.
Passengers,
0.
Nil. Top speed, 70 miles per hour, which is impressive.
The range, though, Nev, I'm kind of worried about the range, because according to our cheat sheet here, it had not the greatest range, but when you look, and I'm assuming, Nev, that this here, behind us here, is the fuel tank, which is not huge, Nev.
My lawnmower definitely has a better fuel tank than this Autogyro, I would say.
And what do you think, Nev, we know what the weather's like. It's sunny, it's blue sky, it's a lovely day here today at the museum, but it is chilly outside. It is chilly. Sitting there, Nev, flying around the Highlands, it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold.
Yes, I've just realised one other thing, by the way. here it says fuel. So I wonder if this is actually the fuel tank down here.
Could possibly be.
And perhaps that's the brake reservoir or something like that, or the power steering.
They'll know. We'll get some emails in from someone who flies an autogyro who will say exactly what that is.
We're not in our comfort zone here, as you
not
can
at all.
tell. But it's fascinating to see this stuff.
Good.
Isn't it?
It is good. But I'm actually quite surprised. You can't see. Nev will take some shots of this in just a moment. But how well built the landing gear is on this, Nev.
Yeah.
It's not just a twig. It's actually quite a substantial landing gear, and even this is quite a substantial aircraft, even though it is quite a relatively small aircraft.
Yeah.
But Rotax engine as well.
Yes. No, it's impressive bit of engineering, and it must have been great fun to fly. But again, if you thought the Jetstream 31 was a little bit bouncy at times, then that's nothing compared to this. Nonetheless, it'd be a great aircraft to start your flying career on, wouldn't it?
A cheap way of learning to fly,
Definitely.
actually. Yeah,
it would be.
Especially as it says for the cadets here in Carlisle and Perth. So it is here for used by the students. So a good, inexpensive way of learning how to fly. Because I'd imagine the fuel burn on these, Nev, is, like you say, equivalent to your qualcast lawnmower.
Yes, we mentioned the range. It does actually say on this sheet, no data available. I think that tells you all you need to know, really, doesn't it?
It does. But another great aircraft here at the museum. It's just full. It's packed full of aircraft, and definitely, if you've not already been here before, I know it's quite a long way to come, I suppose, for our listeners especially where I'm from, on the east coast of the UK, but even for our listeners from further afield. But it's still well worth coming here. There's tons to see. And it's quite a pleasant airfield as well, isn't it?
Great, absolutely
really well kept airfield.
Very nice indeed. Anyway, onwards. Let's go and see some more.
Right. Okay. I mean, I have a lot to unpack here. So the forward, the rotor blades, if you like. So first of all, it looks like a helicopter. Essentially, it's not. Is that right? Yes. Okay. So what looks like rotor blades. Of which there appears to be no discernible gearbox, obviously, because it's not powered. Essentially, they spin as a result of the forward momentum of what's behind. So I guess then it runs down a runway rather than just lifts off, essentially.
Correct, yes.
Right, okay. Okay, I've got a headache. It looks utterly lethal. That's all
Yeah, I remember back in the day, I think we're going back even before your time here, possibly.
Okay.
Where John Noakes of Blue Peter, that was a television
here's
program.
one I made earlier. It's Tracy Island all over again,
for the kids. He actually went up in one of these things.
Did he?
I'm sure back in the late 60s or early 70s, and it looked absolutely frightening. Yeah, imagine buying an electric car, one of those Teslas or something like that,
right.
and it says range, no data available. You wouldn't bother with it, would you? And this is what it says on this on the placard that we were reading off in the museum there. But as a piece of engineering, I think it's magnificent.
A stunning piece of engineering, absolutely. But as you say, an aircraft that doesn't, to be fair, there are many electric cars that could probably boast zero range. Indeed, it's what an utterly fascinating piece of kit. I love that.
Yes.
And is that our last piece now?
It is. That concludes our visit to the museum up there. Fabulous. Really enjoyed it. We've brought you some nice segments from there. A couple of interviews as well, and all the staff and the people that run the place.
You packed an awful lot in, didn't you? In
just one day,
one
less
afternoon,
than a
wasn't
day.
it? Yeah, one
so
afternoon, basically. Yeah,
we had to crack on with it because Carlos had stuff to do in the evening as well. I had to get I had to get a flight back later on. So
but highly recommended as a place to visit.
Yeah. So it's the National Museum of Flight at East Fortune, just southeast of Edinburgh.
Love it. Now it's competition time, Nev.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yes. Now, so firstly, the question from last week was, which aircraft is the longest continuously produced military model for over 6 decades?
Okay.
See, I'm getting into the military again. I'm in areas where I shouldn't be fiddling around with, but
Twice in the same show, Nev. It really won't do.
It's appalling, isn't it? So the question was, which aircraft is the longest continuously produced military model for over 6 decades? The answer, of course, is the Lockheed Hercules C-130.
Oh, of course.
And
Yes.
There you go. I could have told you that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So it's time to dive into the hat. And let's see who we pick out. Right, here we go. Right. This week's winner is James Graves Brown. Well done, James. Brilliant. And the prize is this book here. It's the Milestones of Flight from the Smithsonian National and Air and Space Museum. The Epic of Aviation with the National Air and Space Museum. Quite a heavy book, so a bit of extra postage required.
Oh, no.
So I'm going to send you an email, James. I'm going to ask you for your address, and I will send that out to you.
Absolutely. Now you say, because this is one from your own personal collection.
Yes, it is. Yes, I've dusted it off.
Yeah,
especially.
Indeed. And you said you've read it a few covers. So any highlights that you could recommend?
I mean, plenty. I mean, I think the thing that always amazes me is the speed of progression of this kind of aviation.
Really?
I mean, this is mainly military, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's some civil stuff in here as well. But honestly, the speed at which aviation has occurred is mind blowing, really. So
Absolutely.
It gives a good timeline of how things happened and when they happened.
Yeah, from a great museum as well, isn't it? From the Smithsonian. Yeah,
I wish I could go back there again.
Yeah,
but next time I'm in
that
neck of the woods, I shall do that.
When we win the lottery, Nev, we will.
That's one of our last books, actually. I'm going to get some more books soon, hopefully, from our chums at Grub Street Publishing.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, folks, I could do with a couple more to give away.
Absolutely. Yes, please. Yeah. Get them on the way.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, Nev, we've successfully reached the end.
I know.
Yes. We're very proud of ourselves, aren't we, really? Considering
Although I must say, the only thing that's been lacking possibly is a live chat room.
Yes, absolutely.
To respond to, because we do like that.
We do very much so. So once again, sincere apologies that today's episode has had to be recorded. It was for essentially complicated reasons involving everybody's schedule, but we were very keen to make sure we put something out. Our thanks, as always, to everybody who's been involved in putting the show together, especially to producer John and Nick as well, who've been working hard behind the scenes. Our thanks to Armando, as always, for putting together some great military stories, as always. Hopefully he'll be back on the show sometime again very, very soon. We do miss him when he's not here. Carlos will hopefully be back in the chair next week, all being well. Hopefully we'll all be back to normal next week, fingers crossed. Yes.
In the meantime, of course, if you want to contact us, you know how to do that by now, but I shall recap. On Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. Just look for us, Plain Talking UK. The WhatsApp number is +44 757 224 9166. WhatsApp is +44 757 224 9166. You can email the show at podcast@plaintalkinguk.com, and our website, of course, is all the W's, plaintalkinguk.com. You can look up on YouTube as well, and this is how you get into the chat room as well. Just go to youtube.com and look for Plain Talking UK. If you look at our website, you'll see the ability for you to donate to us as well, on the Patreon system or by PayPal, and that helps us keep the studio costs running sensibly.
And server fees and all sorts of bits and pieces. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So, that's all. Yeah, that is
Indeed. So obviously, bearing in mind this will be going out on Friday, what have you got to look forward to next week, Nev? What's in your itinerary for next week?
Well, A bit more travelling, hopefully with a round left-hand wheel on my car.
Lovely, right.
Not a hexagonal.
Always
one I
helpful, yes.
have at the moment. Hopefully by the time this goes out, it will have been fixed as well.
Yes.
So I'm looking
Fingers
forward
crossed
to
for you, Nev, yes.
But no, it's a very busy time at work at the moment. Normally August is a bit quieter, but of course a lot of people are on holiday, so the people that aren't on holiday, like me,
Yes.
get shoved all the work in. But you know,
Right, okay. I mean, but they like to keep you busy, Nev. That's the main
yes,
thing.
no, I'm not complaining at all. I'm very much enjoying it. And what about you? What's your plan for next week?
So as this goes out, I will be at the Old Buckenham Balloon Festival. Indeed, and I'm there all weekend basically. So I'm there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you're watching this on the Friday, which is when the YouTube version of the show will be released, I will actually be live via the radio. So if you are interested, if you look up parkradio.co.uk, you'll be able to listen to me at 7 a.m, hopefully broadcasting live from the Old Buckenham Balloon Festival. And that's a Saturday and Sunday. And I've genuinely never been and seen, I've seen hot air balloons in the sky, but I've genuinely never seen them close up. I'm so excited about being there all weekend.
Well, I'm excited, but I also hope that the weather behaves itself, because again, not being an aviation expert, but hot air balloons do require very still air.
They do,
and don't they? So I just hope that the weather is sensible.
Yeah, at the moment, looking at the forecasts for this weekend coming, it's certainly a heck of a lot better than it was last weekend.
Good.
We do have very, very low winds at the moment, as in 10 miles an hour or less currently being forecast. So there is a good chance that some flying will hopefully take place. I cannot wait. There's going to be over 10,000 people on site there listening to me doing a breakfast show, which I'll be honest with you is slightly terrifying.
Well, I was going to say that was more terrifying than the ballooning part. Isn't it?
Absolutely. And on Friday, you'll have missed it. Obviously, it will be clipped up and stuff, but on Friday, James, who does his 80s obsession show, he says plugging Park Radio, but I'm actually going to, using the technology that I have at my disposal, mostly thanks to Plain Talking UK, I've got to be brutally honest, we are going to attempt for James to do his 80s obsession music show from a hot air balloon that is going to be taking off and flying over Old Buckenham, Attleborough and Diss.
Oh my word.
So I'm very excited about the technical challenge involved. That obviously I'll be playing the records down on deck, but hopefully the presenter will be in a hot air balloon.
Well, if you'll pardon the pun, that's pushing the envelope, isn't it?
It is pushing the envelope. I mean, you know me, Nev. I don't like to I don't like to give myself an easy life. So absolutely. So we've got everything crossed that the 4G technology that I'm planning to use will hold up in order to get me a Zoom signal basically back to the laptop. That's how I'm going to be doing it. But,
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fascinating technical challenge, if nothing else. And we're going to take lots of videos and stuff. I will absolutely be sharing some of them with you on next week's show. But so I've got a pretty full-on, intense and awesome weekend to look forward to, and as you can tell from my face, something involving aviation, and I'm genuinely excited.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I hope the weather's nice for you.
Me too.
Have a great time, and all the tech works as you would wish it.
Yes, there is that. Yes, the old satellite, the old PTUK satellite, has been giving a dusting. I think I think the last time must have been a couple of years, 3 years before the pandemic. So it took me a little while to get all the codes and everything to get it activated and up and running.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it's great news.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for that. Yeah, definitely.
Indeed.
Definitely hope it goes well, matey.
Thank you.
Stuff. Well, it's been a great hour and a half, hour and 3/4 or so, and thank you very much indeed for tuning in again this week. We're back with a live show next Friday at 7 o'clock in the evening. So hope to see you then. Say goodbye, Matt.
Goodbye, Matt.
See you then. Take care. See you. Bye.